Welcome back. It's time to create my payment methods, and I'm thinking that we should use a card for that. And since I know there's another screen that will use the same card design, that's my addresses, then we should make it into a component. Okay, let's start with a copy of my information. Let's remove all of the fields, but we're gonna keep the button. Now, this should say add new card. In the past, I did use a floating action button, an FAB, but I want to make the user feel very comfortable with the position of this button. So basically, it should always be at the bottom. So we're going to stick with that position. Now for the action bar, let's change the title to Payment Methods. By the way, you could even have a plus icon here in the action bar to add a new credit card. It's really up to you. These decisions should be based on what's best for the user. A plus in the action bar is probably not ideal, but considering you won't use it all that often, you could potentially use it. All in all, I am happy with the orange button right here. Now, before we do anything fancy, let's simply add the text layers, the foundation. So the first one is going to be primary card, which helps the user know what's the default card, if any. Now, to be honest, we should include a screen when there's no payment method selected, but we're going to talk about that later on. In short, we're going to skip over quite a few basic screens, intermediate screens, because there's nothing special about them. We could add at least 10 more screens, but again, it's not going to be all that exciting nor useful. Okay, next, let's add edit. Fantastic. Now, for the card's number, I'm going to use a dot that's created by using Alt 0139. So again, that's by using Alt and the numeric keys on your keyboard. 0139. And once you have a dot, simply copy paste it a bunch of times. Remember, 4 characters per group. There are 4 in total. If you can't manage with a dot, just use a star. That's Shift 8. Okay, for the last group, this should be visible so you can identify the card. Awesome. Now, no discussion about the styling right now. Let's finish with the expiration date, 04/28 for example. And now we can talk about making this into a reusable card. Okay, so let's do this. For the first line, let's use the smaller title styling. In case you don't have it, that means Nunito Black 26 pixels. For the second line, let's use the body styling. Nunito regular 24 pixels. Now, in terms of color, edit needs to be orange since it's an action. It has to show that you can click it. For the rest, we're just gonna use blue. It's super basic. Now, could we potentially use gray for the second line? Yeah, I think that works as well. It's really up to you. I'm gonna stick with blue though. Now, for the card itself, we're gonna need a bunch of auto layouts. To make this easier, I'm gonna add another action. Make primary. This is not useful here, but we're gonna need it for the secondary cards. Okay, right. Now let's take it one at a time. Select these 2 actions and set up an auto layout, Shift A, because we want to be able to control the distance between them. Let's say in this case, probably 50. Okay, then all 3 text layers need to form one line. So again, grab them and then use Shift A. Now we can change the spacing mode from packed, which is the default, to space between, because obviously they need to be split. Now nothing has happened, but that's totally fine. Now for the second row, grab both layers and hit Shift A. Same thing, we want to set them to space between instead of packed. I hope everything makes sense up until now. Finally, to be able to add one single fill for all of these guys, we're gonna select everything like so, and then use Shift A one final time. Not only does this give us an option to quickly create a white background, but we can also control the vertical distance between them. In this case, let's say 40 for example. Okay, we're looking for 32 on either side and 16 for the top and bottom. That's our padding. Of course, we won't keep square edges. Those are not fun. Change it to 10 pixels for example, and I think this should be good. Okay, center it inside the screen if you haven't done so already. Now we could make this as flexible as possible, but I always try to keep things as simple as I can. So select the biggest frame, the one that has the white fill, and change it to fixed width. And that's going to open up the W field. Put in 656, 656 pixels, and that should be it. But you know what? I have to say 40 pixels between these two lines doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering we have such a small padding. So actually, let's drop it to 20, but raise the padding to 32 for the top and bottom edges. In case you feel that's too much, you can tone it down, but overall, yeah, I'm happy with it. Okay, let's make this into a component. I don't like the hotkey, I always have my mouse in the center of the screen, so clicking the icon from up top is easier for me. Okay, now let's drag out a copy and center it horizontally. I haven't mentioned it, but keep 30 to 32 pixels from the action bar. You really have to stay consistent because it actually helps. Okay, now for the selected card, make primary has to be removed because obviously it's already the primary one. And to show that it's currently selected, let's do this. We can add a border, a thick one, 3 pixels. For the color, orange would be a bit too much, so let's go with blue. And you know, yellow, I don't think it would have enough contrast and it might be a bit shouty in this situation. Okay, now let's drag a second card from the assets panel. This one should have make primary kept as it is. And to make it feel real, please change up the last 4 digits for the credit card as well as the expiration date. I love the fact that Figma knows that I'm in text editing mode, so I only have to click once to change up these text layers. Great stuff. Okay, when you're ready, please move on to my addresses. I'm gonna zoom through it quite fast, and as I work in the background, let me tell you a little bit about Figma. There were other design programs on the market a few years ago, for example Affinity or Sketch. But Figma took the design world by storm. They produce great content and they really managed to build a community. And all the little things that people were asking for, well, Figma delivered. Even though Figma was a super small and a new company, they did it. Compared to Adobe, which basically has unlimited money, unlimited profits, unlimited people, talent, well, they actually moved quite slowly. So that's why some people, myself included, were a bit disappointed by the state of Adobe XD. The updates just weren't coming fast enough. I'm not 100% certain, but if I remember correctly, Adobe XD was in beta for at least 2 years, at least. More than that, the Windows version, the first one, came out, I believe it was after the year, maybe a year and a half after the Mac version. I was fuming, I was so angry. See, I've always been a Windows guy, but I seriously considered getting a Mac just to use Adobe XD. And then, when I saw how Adobe simply wasn't coming along with updates fast enough, the frustration grew. And again, I don't think I'm the only one that feels this way. So that's why Figma basically caught on like fire. And with that, we're ready to move on. We finished these 2 screens in record time. Plus, we can always come back and make adjustments through the use of components. Thank you, I'm gonna see you in a second.